Hey there, welcome to my channel. I'm Farrell, not Carol, not Beryl, not Sarah, which I get a lot on the phone for some reason. Farrell, like Will Ferrell, or Colin Farrell, or a feral cat. Hiya. My name is Farrell, and today we're going to be talking about A Discovery of Witches, which is, which happens to be one of my favorite novels. And ultimately, the reason why I decided to finally make a YouTube channel to talk about novels and their adaptations. I should preface this video with the fact that I am definitely going to be giving spoilers away. So if you haven't read the books yet or seen the TV show, A, I would highly recommend doing that. B, you should probably switch the video off now if you're like one of those people that doesn't like spoilers, because I'm gonna spoil everything. All right, so while Agnes figures out exactly how she's gonna get comfortable, hi. Let's talk about the plot of the book and the TV show. She is comfy cozy. Yeah. Are we? Is this the pose we're going with? It's gonna turn into a cat cam. All right, let's start off with the plot of A Discovery of Witches. At the beginning of the book, we meet Diana in the Bodleian Library, where she's studying alchemy. In her efforts to find out more information for her paper that she's writing, she takes out the manuscript Ashmole 782. Very quickly into obtaining Ashmole 782, she realizes that it's a magical book. In this moment, she has to fight two sides of herself. The side of her that is curious and knows that she can use her witchy powers in order to figure out exactly what's going on with the book, and the scholar side of her, which has promised not to use any of her powers in order to get ahead in her career, which is a very impressive career. She graduated early from college, she got tenure for as a professor in the United States, and now she's in Oxford once again. uh, I forget if she's returning to Oxford in the book, but she is a returning student, or I guess she's just there. I don't remember if she's returning to Oxford in the book, but she's definitely returning. Oh no, it's because she knows Jillian. Oh, I don't remember. Editing me remembers that Jillian is American in the book and British in the TV show. So TV Diana knew Jillian from her time in Oxford before, whereas book Jillian is just a colleague whose mom used to date Diana's aunt. So she's in Oxford to study alchemy. She graduated with honors from college. She became a professor and then got tenured as a professor. And now she's back in Oxford to study alchemy for a paper that she's writing. And so this is how she comes across Ashmole 782. She ultimately decides to return it. She's chosen the scholarly side of her life and doesn't want anything to do with this magical manuscript that she's uncovered. Unfortunately for Diana, other creatures are desperate to get their hands on this book. Some of them have been searching for the manuscript for, I think it's like centuries, for a very long time. One of these creatures is a vampire named Matthew. Matthew is also a professor. He studies genetics and happens to be a vampire, which ultimately, from the beginning, puts Diana on guard around him. But there also begins to develop a sort of connection, chemistry between them. So much so that Matthew ends up leaving Oxford because he starts craving Diana and needs to get a break from her, essentially. So he visits his friend Hamish in Scotland. Now, Matthew and Hamish have been friends for a really long time, and Hamish has grown to adore and respect and love his friend. So when Matthew is telling him about this new girl that he's come across, this witch, Hamish is very encouraging of him to pursue that relationship and to be honest with her about why he's interested in Ashmole 782. This is not the case in the TV show, but I'll get into that later. Now, while Matthew is gone, Diana is still in Oxford, going to the Bodleian Library to study alchemy. and she notices that there's an unusual amount of creatures that are collecting in the Selden End, which is the area that she does her research. One of those creatures is a witch named Peter Knox, and he's on the congregation. Although I don't know if she knows that at this point, but he's on the congregation, which is a group of vampires, witches, and demons who essentially decide the rules and regulations that all the creatures have to live by. And one of those rules is the covenant, which means that vampires and witches and demons are not supposed to commingle with other species romantically, obviously, but also just as friends. They're supposed to keep their distance because when creatures get together, they attract too much attention. Anyway, so Peter Knox is on the congregation, and he initially comes off as a friend to Diana. He knew her parents, he speaks very highly of them, and so he tries to recruit Diana in his efforts to get his hands on Ashmole 782. But when he explains to her what he thinks Ashmole 782 is, which is the original grimoire, which is grimoire that will explain how vampires were created and ultimately how they can be killed. Now, Diana isn't exactly the biggest fan of vampires, but she definitely doesn't want them to all be murdered. So she tells Knox, like, she's not interested, she's not going to help him, which of course irritates him to the point where he attacks her at the dean's office. Like he convinces the dean with magic to invite Diana to his office, and then springs an attack on her, a mental attack, kind of like getting in her head and telling her he can find her anywhere, sort of thing. So this attack on Diana from her own kind essentially sends her running into Matthew's arms when he returns. So, per his friend's advice, Matthew decides to tell Diana the truth about why he wants Ashmole 782 and what he thinks it is. Matthew thinks that the manuscript is going to explain essentially how creatures came to be, but also help him understand why they're starting to die out. He explains to Diana that vampires are losing their ability to create more vampires, witches are getting weaker by the decade, losing their abilities and their powers, and demons are slowly going crazy. Diana really appreciates that, unlike Peter Knox, who's trying to like kill people, Matthew is actually trying to save them. So she not only offers to give her blood to his studies, but she asks him out on like an official date. So they go on a couple of dates together. They kiss, and at the end of the second date, like official date, because they've gone out to breakfast before this, and Matthew took her to like yoga. But they have their two dates and they kiss at the end of them. And then Diana decides, she's like, you know what? I'm just gonna go get the book out. And Matthew's like, well, I don't know. That's kind of dangerous. Maybe you shouldn't do that. The guy that's like was obsessed with getting his hands on Ashmole 782 now all of a sudden is like, I don't know if it's a good idea, which he's right. It's not a good idea. There's too many creatures that are interested in the book. But so they go together the next day to the Bodleian Library, and Diana tries to get it out again, and she fails. So Peter Knox is there to see this, and he kind of like laughs in her face, like, ah ha ha, I knew you couldn't do it. But then he sees that Matthew is there essentially like protecting her, and they're breaking the covenant, which Diana doesn't know about yet. And that's the last straw for him. He's like, you're no longer like you're against us witches, and you're gonna give our most prized possession to the vampires. Like, you better watch your back, essentially. Which scares Matthew, understandably. And he's like, we need to get you out of here. Let's go to Woodstock, which is where his house is. And we'll just like get out of town for a little bit. And Diana's like, oh, okay, I guess. They go back to her flats, her rooms. And when she gets there, she finds an envelope. And in the envelope are pictures of her dead parents. Now, her parents were like really powerful witches for their time, and they were killed, she was told, by scared humans. Turns out it was actually the witches that killed her parents. So she now knows this because the pictures were sent to her by Peter Knox as like a threat of like, this could be you next sort of thing, which she's always kind of been afraid of anyways. It's part of why she pushed her powers away as she was growing up after her parents died, because she didn't want humans to be afraid of her or like attack her. But now she knows that it was actually witches, which makes it even worse. So she has a panic attack now that she's discovered this new information. And Matthew takes care of her. She falls asleep. While she's asleep, Marcus, who's Matthew's assistant, Miriam and Marcus are Matthew's assistants. He comes to her rooms and tells Matthew that her blood is showing an insane amount of like markers for all these powers that she's not showing the ability for yet, but her blood says that she has the ability to have all of the like witch wind, witch water, witch fire, like the elements. She has the power of the elements. She has the power to like talk to animals. She has the power to like fly. Like it's all in her blood. These powers, these potential powers. And Matthew decides, you know what? I'm not going to tell her quite yet. And Marcus is like, you sure about that? And it seems like, kind of like how Hamish was like, shouldn't you just tell her the truth? Like, she can handle the truth, right? And Matthew's like, no, she's not ready for it yet. So when she wakes up the next day, she has another panic attack. And Matthew tries to like take hold of her and trying to comfort her with his arms. I don't know. I don't remember specifically. But him coming for her freaks her out even more, which brings out of her witch wind. And it isn't until Matthew promises not to kind of like take hold of her, like go for her anymore, that she is able to calm down. And so this show of power is Matthew's like, we have got to get you out of here. And she's like, yeah, I know, we're going to Woodstock. He's like, no, we got to go much further than that. I'm taking you to Septours, where I grew up. My mom's there. You're gonna be much safer on our property than you will be anywhere else. So they go to France, and Diana gets to meet Matthew's maker, Isabeau, and she's a character. She does not like witches at all, because in the 1940s during World War II, witches actually kidnapped her husband Philippe and tortured him, just kind of to see, well, I think it was the humans were torturing him, but the witches helped keep him there so that they could torture him. So they go to Septour in France, and Diana gets to meet Isabeau. Isabeau is not a fan of Diana, but she's cordial, right? Matthew makes it very clear that she's got to be nice. So Diana and Matthew use the time to escape from London. They also use it as an opportunity to kind of see like what sort of powers Diana might be able to tap into while she's there. She figures out that she can tell like animals what to do with her mind. She can like kind of float. She floats at this like dinner that she and Matthew dance at. And it's also an opportunity for her and Matthew to spend more time together, and they start to like really fall in love with each other. That is until another member of the congregation, Domenico, shows up on their property. He's there to tell them, I think in the book, so it's different in the book than it is in the TV show. Let me look at my notes. Okay, so according to my notes, in the book, Domenico is there to essentially point out, like, hey guys, we know you're breaking the covenant. You're not supposed to be doing that. He doesn't give two shits about Ashmole 782, right? In the TV show, he's there because of Ashmole 782. The congregation wants Diana to come to, I think they're in Italy? In Venice? Venice. I think they're in Venice. So he's telling Diana that she has to come in front of the congregation, essentially explain how she got a hold of Ashmole 782. While he's there in the TV show, he realizes that Matthew and Diana are like starting to have feelings for each other, and he's like, "You guys are breaking the covenant. Like, what the fuck? You're not supposed to do that." So either way, Diana book and TV show book, TV show Diana and book Diana both find out that there's a thing called the covenant, and it essentially means that she and Matthew aren't supposed to date. When they get back into Septur away from Domenico, Matthew ultimately decides, like, listen, we got to cool it. We can't do this anymore, which upsets Diana because she's like, dude, I'm in love with you. You can't do that. Like, why would you give in to them, sort of thing? And Matthew's like, and then his phone rings, and it's Marcus who's explaining that the lab got broken into. So Matthew's like, I gotta go check out what's going on. You gotta stay here. And Diana's like, no, I wanna go with you. And he's like, no, you're staying here. You gotta stay here. I'll be back. Not exactly finishing the I love you conversation, right? So Matthew goes, and his leaving her feels super wrong to Diana. And that is the first time she experiences witch water. So basically, in the book, in the TV show, they show it as like her making waterfall from the sky. In the book, it's like her she creates water and is like drowning essentially until she's able to like calm herself, which is actually Isabeau that calms her down with a song, which is very sweet of her. What next? Oh, so Matthew's gone, checking out what happened with the break-in. Meanwhile, Isabeau shows Diana around town. She talks about Matthew's life when he was a human, how he got married and had a little boy, and then both his wife and his son died from an illness. And he ultimately, most likely, tried to commit suicide. Isabeau finds him at the bottom of a very tall tower, his back broken, crying out in pain, and she decides to turn him into a vampire. So that's how he became who he is. Isabeau also takes Diana hunting to kind of try and show her exactly what vampires are truly like, to try and like scare her off of her son. Which Diana's like, I'm not scared. I'm not scared of you. I'm not scared of him. I trust both of you. You're not gonna hurt me. Blah blah blah. So while Matthew's in London, he uncovers the fact that Jillian and Peter Knox, the witches, were essentially the ones that broke into his lab, possibly trying to get Diana's blood information. In the TV show, this is when Matthew finds out what is going on with Diana's blood and how she has all these markers. That means she's capable of a lot of stuff. So Matthew returns from London, and they ultimately decide to be romantically in a relationship and like fool around, but don't have sex. They don't consummate their marriage, or not marriage. They don't consummate their relationship, which is it turns out is an important piece of the puzzle later. So Matthew and Diana decide to be together, and then very shortly after that, Diana is kidnapped by Satu. I think Satu in the book is already on the congregation, but Satu in the TV show has a much more complicated backstory and side quests going on than are in the book. I'll talk about that later. So Satu kidnaps Diana from Septur and takes her to Gerbert's like abandoned castle. And she tries to torture out information from Diana about her powers. But she's unable to do it because, as Diana finds out through this process, her parents spellbound her when she was a kid to try and help hide her abilities, which is not a great thing. For as far as Diana knows, the only witches that get spellbound are witches that have done something truly horrendous to then take their powers away from them, which is essentially what her parents did. But they did it to protect her, not to punish her. So Satu's not able to get any information out of Diana, and she throws her down an oubliette, which is this really deep hole that's meant to keep people prisoner, unless you can like throw a rope down and like pull them up. So at the bottom of this deep hole, Diana remembers this story that her parents told her when she was a kid about a princess and how she was going to have to pull on the ribbons, essentially uh, explain that she's going to have to unbind herself when she's ready to. When Matthew realizes that Diana's been taken, he's freaking out and ultimately ends up asking his brother for help. His brother's Baldwin, another member of the congregation. And initially, his brother's like not going to help him because he already knows about Matthew and Diana and is like, you guys aren't even supposed to be together. Like, just let the witches like deal with her. That's like a witch business thing. So Matthew ends up using the Knights of Lazarus, which is his father gave him like power over the Knights of Lazarus, and technically Baldwin, who is the head of the family and is allowed to tell Matthew what he can and can't do. Baldwin is a knight in the Knights of Lazarus. So Matthew, within the Knights of Lazarus, is in charge of Baldwin. So he uses the Knights of Lazarus to tell Baldwin, "No, you got to help me find my girl." So Baldwin does he does help, and they find her. She's at the bottom of the oubliette. They can't get down to get her, so she has to fly. So she flies her butt out of the oubliette. They take her back to Paris, not Paris. They take her back to Septour and ultimately decide that she can't stay there. She's totally trashed from Satu's torturing her. And Matthew ultimately agrees to take her back home to her aunts, who are two witches. She has her biological aunt, Aunt Sarah, and Aunt Sarah's partner for a very long time is Emily. Aunt Sarah plays the part of overprotective parent, and Aunt Emily is more of the even natured, cool headed sort of parent. So she goes to be with her aunts while she heals, and ultimately, it's like at this point, they're in a lot of trouble. There's in a lot of deep shit. They need to figure out where they can go, but at the same time, there's only so far they can run before the congregation catches up with them. While they're in Madison, her aunts try to help her with her powers, but Diana is very quickly coming into many new powers, and she needs assistance from witches that are just they know more and they're more powerful than what her aunts can provide essentially. But they do their best. And while she's in Madison, Diana discovers yet another ability, the ability to time walk, which is an ability she gets from her dad. Very quickly after they arrive in Madison, the house, which is a magical house, gives them a page from Ashmole 782. And in the picture on the page, it's like a representation of Diana and Matthew's wedding. So this really old ass book has a picture of Diana and Matthew in it, which is like what crazy, right? They also discover uh, a poppet, which is one of Diana's ancestors, like witchy torture, like put a pin in it and it'll someone will feel it, sort of thing. Inside the poppet is one of Isabeau's lost earrings from like the 1590s, which is crazy that Diana's ancestors' poppet has Isabeau's earring in it. Like, what is going on here? That all these like old artifacts are showing their lives have intertwined long before they ever met. While they're there, Marcus and Matthew show up. Marcus and Miriam show up, and they have more information about Diana's blood. Essentially, when they see the picture of Diana and Matthew getting married, Miriam reveals that they think that her blood is saying that she and Matthew could actually have a baby, which is not revealed in the TV show. Then two demons show up on their porch, Sophie and Nathaniel, and they have with them this old chess piece that belonged to Matthew. And Sophie explains that it's been in her family for generations. She's a demon, her partner's a demon, but she's pregnant, and her baby is a witch, which is crazy because, first of all, species are not supposed to commingle with each other, but clearly you can't uncommingle with your own baby, right? So the fact that two demons can have a baby witch, the congregation, not only the congregation going to like come after Diana and Matthew, they're also going to come after Nathaniel and Sophie as soon as they realize what's going on, because that is a threat to everything that the congregation has established. But the thing about this chess piece that Sophie has had in her family for a long time, it's actually a chess piece that Matthew lost in the 1590s. So now he's starting to put the pieces together. Diana can time walk. They need to get out of Dodge, essentially, and Diana needs stronger, more powerful, more knowledgeable witches in order to help her figure out her powers. So he reveals to Diana that he thinks everything that's the pieces are coming together to require them to time walk back into the 1590s. So then Diana has to figure out how to time walk. So she has to practice, and she practices going back to the first day they arrived in Madison. She goes back to one of their first nights in Septour where they have the like dinner, and she floats during dancing. And so, like, also Hamish comes to visit. So once Hamish comes to visit, then they have three demons, three witches, and three vampires under one roof. And they decide to make a like anti congregation and like essentially vow to fight against them once Diana and Matthew return, but also while they're gone. And so Marcus is made like captain of the Knights of Lazarus, and it's essentially like once Diana and Matthew return, there's just going to be pretty much an all-out war, essentially. But the book ends with Matthew and Diana leaving to go to the past in London. All right, now that we've gotten the plot out of the way, let's talk about the differences between the book and the TV show. So I mentioned some of the side characters. Oh, I forgot to talk about Juliet. See, here's the thing. The character in the book is present for like a chapter, Juliet. She was this vampire that Gerbert, the guy that offered the castle that's on the congregation to torture Diana, to let Satu torture Diana. Gerbert created Juliet in order to fuck with Matthew. So Gerbert, while Matthew and Diana are in Madison, he sends Juliet to go kill Matthew and to bring Diana back to the congregation. Obviously, Juliet fails, and that's the first time that Diana is able to use witch fire. And then she has to make a deal with the goddess Diana in order to save Matthew's life because Juliet like mortally wounds him. So these side characters, Juliet, Gerbert, Domenico, the guy that like comes to like tell Matthew and Diana that they, you know, need to chill it on the covenant, like they can't be fooling around. And then in the TV show, he's there for Ashmole 782 purposes. These three characters get so much like side quest time that they don't get in the book in the TV show, and it ultimately like is in my opinion completely unnecessary, and it takes away time from Matthew and Diana moments. In the TV show, we don't get those moments. Their relationship is very hostile, and then they're supposedly falling in love even though they only get one date instead of two in the TV show, and the date ends with this really awkward like kiss between them where Matthew's trying to not rip her head off. These are two actors who have had in the past really great chemistry with other people, right? Teresa Palmer in Warm Bodies is such a great movie, such great chemistry that she creates with Nicholas Hoult, and he's playing a zombie, right? And she's able to like give those moments where she is like finding his humanity even before he starts to have humanity. And Matthew Good, so many great parts where he's created chemistry with other co-stars, co-leads. So why does Teresa Palmer and Matthew Good not have any chemistry with each other? Especially when in interviews that I've watched between with them in, being interviewed for the show, they have great chemistry together, just as like people hanging out and laughing and being cute and silly together. You know what I mean? Like I don't understand why this one time it that I really wanted it to be there, it just wasn't translating onto the screen. Partly my theory is that they were both so focused on being the characters, which they were. They were amazing. Matthew is great. Teresa as Diana is amazing. I can't think of a better actress to play that part. But for whatever reason, they just like And I'm like, maybe if they had more scenes, if we didn't spend so much time on these freaking side characters that don't need these side plots, these side quests, you know what I mean? Like, maybe if we had had more moments for these two characters to connect instead of just a couple of moments where they're like, "Oh, I don't know about you," or "Oh, I want the book from you." But here's the other thing. The actor who plays Marcus, who is wonderful in the show and also wonderful in My Lady Jane, Edward Bluemel. If you haven't seen My Lady Jane, like, what are you doing? Go watch it right now. Turn this off, go watch it. My Lady Jane on Amazon Prime is such a wonderful show, and it got canceled after one season. And maybe if we all watch it, we'll get a second season, and we'll get to see the awesome chemistry that Edward Bluemel can create with freaking a rock. Not saying Emily Bader is a rock, just that Edward Bluemel could create chemistry with a rock if he chose to. Emily is amazing in My Lady Jane, as well as everything else I've seen her in. He's so good. Anyways, so where was I? Yes, these side characters get these stories. The only two characters that get side quests that are not in the original book that I do really like are Sophie and Nathaniel. There's maybe 4 or 5 scenes that they have where they're kind of explaining who they are. God damn it. Here comes another plane. And as it turns out, Nathaniel's mom is actually on the congregation, Agatha. She's a demon on the congregation. It's really weird. It's like the mic is not picking this up, but I can absolutely hear the, the airplane. And I can't tell if it's here or if it's just like so freaking loud out here. But I guess it's fine, whatever it is. Okay, I think it's gone. So, Nathaniel's mom is on the congregation, and there's a couple of scenes in the TV show where we get to see Sophie and Nathaniel's relationship. He's kind of going on online forums to try and connect with the other demons, other creatures. I think it might be just other demons, but I think it's other creatures. So I found their additional scenes to be really informative and helpful, and help the watcher essentially understand who those characters were before they even showed up on Matthew and Diana's doorstep. I thought that was extremely helpful. I was glad that the TV show added them. The ones for Gerbert and Domenico and Juliet were, and I've seen all 3 seasons, right? I've read all 3 books, seen all 3 seasons. They're completely unnecessary. They did not need to be there, and I think they really took away from from the opportunity for Matthew and Diana to connect and have that chemistry that you get from the books. Another thing that I'm not really a fan of in the TV show is the relationship between Hamish and Matthew. It's like literally every 5 seconds there's another airplane, and I don't know if it's loud or not, but it's loud to me. Okay, I think it's gone. So, the relationship between Hamish and Matthew in the books, I think, is an important aspect to humanizing Matthew, who does some abhorrent things. But Hamish's ability to love him and care for him and want the best for him helps also the reader then love him and care for him and want the best for him. The scene where Matthew goes to Scotland to get away from Diana after he starts craving her, his interaction with Hamish is like that. Whatever that is, that's what it was. It's harsh, it's abrupt, it's lacking warmth and love. It's it's just they kind of like act like they don't like each other. And I get it. It's like in the book, Hamish is encouraging Matthew to pursue Diana and be honest with her. In the TV show, when Hamish learns about Diana, so Matthew has a history with other warm-blooded women, and the 2 times he's dated other warm-blooded women and fallen in love with them, they die. And so book Hamish doesn't know this yet. Matthew reveals this while he's up in Scotland. TV show Hamish does know this, and he's like, stay away from her, forget about Ashmole 782. And they're like arguing about this as Matthew's leaving Scotland, which is not how it goes in the book. So we don't get this moment, a break from Matthew being cold and distant to then get to see him being warm and loving towards somebody. We don't get that in the TV show. We just see grumpy Matthew with Diana, then grumpy Matthew with Hamish, then grumpy Matthew with Diana again. It's like there's no break from it, you know what I mean, in the TV show, which might be why there's no chemistry between the two characters. I don't know. I don't know. I genuinely would have preferred cutting most of those side character scenes for more time with the two main characters. I really feel like they needed it. You know what I mean? Now, Peter Knox and Satu, I'm kind of on the fence. In the book, Satu plays a smaller role in the first novel. She just kidnaps Diana, she tortures her for information, and then she leaves her at the bottom of the oubliette. That's all we get of Satu. In the TV show, she's got a much bigger role. She's younger, she's greener. Peter Knox comes and like recruits her to be on the congregation because she's more powerful than he is, even though he has this like black ball that he uses in order to amp his powers up essentially. But there's a lot of scenes with Satu where she's following Diana and she's conspiring with Peter Knox that are not part of the TV show or part of the book. And ultimately, by the end of the third season, I would say those extra scenes are justified. I think building up the character of Satu isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think it helps also to have more scenes with Peter Knox and help develop him as a character. So I'll give those side character quests a pass because I think in the long run those scenes are more beneficial than they are without them. Okay, now on to the things that I think the TV show absolutely nailed. In general, the entire TV show is one of my favorite book adaptations. So the things that I absolutely loved, Miriam and Marcus are so well cast. Like I said already, Miriam or Marcus is played by Edward Blumell, and I've become a big fan of his like outside of this TV show. Like he's great in the TV show, but I've gotten to see other stuff that he's been in since then, and he's really been able to like shine in other parts. And he's also able to shine a lot in the second season when he gets his own love interest. Miriam is also another one of those characters that's really well cast, and her part in the show is essentially the same as it is in the book. There's no changes. But the actress, I don't know her name. What's her name? Miriam is played by Aisha Hart, and I haven't seen her in anything else, but she nails this character. Like every single scene she's in, every single breath she takes, every single move she makes is exactly Miriam. Like so well cast in for that character. Another two characters that were insanely well cast were the aunts. Aunt Sarah and Aunt Emily are played by Alex Kingston and Valerie Pettiford, respectively. And those two women, like their scenes are some of my favorite scenes in the whole show, which is saying a lot because it's a romance. And you'd think that like the romantic scenes and the scenes between the two main characters are some of my favorite in the show. No, it's the aunts. The aunts are so well played. Alex Kingston as Aunt Sarah has that like manic, crazy, terrified mother shtick thing down pat. Like, and that's exactly how she is in the book. So she like just plays it so well. And then Valerie Pettiford gets to play the like calm, cool, collected aunt to the craziness of Aunt Sarah. You know what I mean? They're just so sweet with each other. Oh, there's like there's moments where it, like totally gets me tear. I mean, obviously, like it gets me emotional even now. Like they're just so wonderful. Another person that was perfectly cast was the actress that played Isabeau. I haven't ever seen Lindsay Duncan in anything else, but like, ugh, talk about wonderful casting. She was so elegant and like slightly frosty, but also had her very like warm moments, which is what you need from Isabeau. Ugh, so good. And then you have Louise Brayley, who plays Gillian Chamberlain, who I've barely talked about so far, but the difference between book Gillian and TV show Gillian is vast. And I think it was such a wonderful choice to. So in the book, Jillian and Diana immediately don't get along. You see Jillian like invite her to like a couple of like witchy events, and Diana's like, no, sorry, like I'm busy, which witches know when they lie to each other. So she's letting Jillian know, like, hey girl, I don't want to hang out with you, essentially. But the main reason is because that Diana has chosen to distance herself from that side of her, of like who she is, because of what happened with her parents. So in the book, it's revealed that Jillian's actually the one that broke into Matthew's labs, and he ends up killing her, which upsets Diana, understandably. But in the TV show, oh my god, another plane. They're like, is everyone landing at 8 o'clock at night? Like, WTF, mate? I'm gonna have to get another glass of wine after waiting after like all these airplanes. I swear, if I watch this back and I can't hear planes at all, a single moment in this whole recording, I'm not even gonna worry about it next time. See, here's the thing is I can't hear them in here. There's nothing. It's just my voice. Okay, so now that the plane's gone. So TV show Jillian, her and Diana are actually like really good friends, and they catch up over tea, and they talk about how much they miss each other and how it's so nice to be around each other again. And Jillian does invite her to go to Maybon and like, hey, come hang out with the other witches. And Diana's like, no. And she explains, she's like, yeah, I don't really like, not since my parents died, sort of thing. And Jillian's like, oh, yeah, okay, no worries. But what ends up happening is Jillian realizes, like, when Diana takes Ashmole 782 out, all the creatures around feel it, which is how Matthew finds out about it. In the book, Matthew finds out about Diana and Ashmole 782 at like a concert or something. It's like kind of weird and awkward a little bit, just a little bit. But in the TV show, he's like nearby, and all the creatures are like affected when Ashmole 782 is taken out, and Diana starts interacting with it, right? Jillian's one of those. And so when Diana returns the book and runs out of the Bodleian Library, Jillian follows her and is like, oh my God, what was that? What's going on? Matthew, in like, meanwhile, has caught up to where he felt it and is like listening with his vampire ears, and he overhears this conversation about between Jillian and Diana. So that's how he knows Diana's the one that took it out, right? So when Diana and Matthew are having all of these interactions in the TV show, she's going to Jillian and she's talking about Ashmole 782 and she's talking about the vampire. And Jillian's giving her the advice of like, oh, maybe, and when Peter Knox comes around, she's talking to Jillian about Peter Knox. And Jillian's like, oh, well, he's one of us. You should trust him. And oh, why don't you just get him the book? Blah, blah, blah. Turns out Jillian and is like helping Peter Knox and giving him all this information about Diana. It's like she's how he found out that it was Diana that took out Ashmole 782, because he wasn't in town. He was going and he was like collecting Satu at the time. So when Peter Knox attacks Diana at the dean's in the TV show, it's like a party that she gets invited to. When Peter Knox attacks her, she goes to Jillian to like, oh my God, this crazy thing happened. Peter Knox is there because Jillian's freaking telling him everything. Diana sees this, and that's when she goes to Matthew and is like, I can't trust anybody anymore. Will you help me, sort of thing. I'll give one more gripe. I've talked about all the great things that I love about the TV show adaptation. One bummer part is that you don't get to see all of Diana's powers. I think one of the things that makes like the book believable in a sense, even though it's like witches and vampires, I know it's not actually believable, but one thing that makes it like believable that like Diana is this like ultimate superpower being by the end of it, right? In the book, we're seeing her collect power after power after power, and we don't see this in the TV show. Also, she unbinds herself at the bottom of the oubliette. She's like talking to her parents. Another power that she gets is that she can talk or see dead people and talk to them. She clearly follows the story that her parents told her and unbinds herself, and now she has the ability to reach all of her powers, right? In the TV show, they never like she she's still bound after Matthew saves her. And they never like talk about when she gets unbound. That's one thing that I wish they would have covered. More powers for Diana and making explicitly clear when she is unbound. But other than the side characters that end up being useless by the end, and a couple of other gripes, this is again one of my favorite adaptations. And even though I've discussed all of it, you should still read the book. You should still watch the TV show because the TV show is absolutely wonderful. And guess what? I'm going to talk about book 2 in the trilogy coming up in the next like video. And the second season that covers like book 2 is one of the most faithful adaptations of a book that I have ever seen. It is ridiculous how well and how faithful they are to the second book. I'm really looking forward to talking about it, and I hope you're looking forward to watching it. If you stuck around this long, thank you. I appreciate it. Leave a comment if you've read the book or you haven't, or you want to. Leave a like if you also want to. Feel free to subscribe if you want to follow along with me as I talk about books and their adaptations. And I hope to see you in the next one. Okay, bye.